And so if you over here, and
I
see 4 questions at this moment, so let's see if we can get through them.
I keep hearing, and the film didn't really address this, but I keep hearing from you, and I personally feel, that a good deal of the problem with traditional education is the layers of administration that have been put on by the federal government, the state government, local school districts, however far down. And you specifically addressed that, somebody here. When a parent comes in and says, this doesn't seem to be working, I have this idea, they can go to somebody, and at least it's seriously looked at. You might not implement it. That's always a risk. But is there any feel in the state that if some of those layers of administration were simplified, eliminated, that traditional schools could become better by that elimination? I mean, it's because it sounds like that's what a lot of the charter schools, yes, you're focused on math and science because the kids weren't getting that in the school, but that there's not a lot of the paperwork and so on. Obviously, you are accountable to your charter board and to your parents, and ultimately there's some state board that you're accountable to, because that's why the equestrian schools charter is not being renewed. But would that help a huge section of the population that there aren't enough charter schools, there isn't enough parent push, and so on and so forth? Because when I think about rural schools 100 years ago, 60 years ago, whatever it was, they were only responsible really to their community, right? And if the community didn't like the teacher, well, see you later type of thing. But I saw no discussion of that, and I don't know if that's been a discussion in this state.
Ray, you might be in some position to address that most immediately, and I am going to try and get to every question here.
Anytime I hear of a kind of a political or legislative approach to solving an education problem, I just cringe, because I feel that they often target the wrong thing and look at one piece of a problem and not a whole problem. I would hope that in New Hampshire that some schools, districts could look at what we're doing in Surrey and say, wow, there was a little town that said they didn't have enough of a student base to justify running a school. And it was prohibitively expensive to run a school for 30 children in the town of Surrey. These people found a mechanism that they could provide the school to that town and those 30 kids, and potentially draw in some other kids from other towns and get a little bit more funding from the state than towns typically get, and they could make that little school work, and that the education of the kids there is as good, if not better, than what they would get in a larger school that they would get funneled into in the next bigger town. And I would hope that schools could look around and say, wow, maybe we should make some smaller schools that are more responsive to families and their local community. I fear that we're so small that the school districts around us really don't pay much attention to us at all. And that they have a knee-jerk fear that we are going to drain resources from their school.
I promise my question is short. You have talked about this $5,400 figure, but you also mentioned that it might vary depending on the town that it's located in. I'm curious, or maybe I understood that wrong, but I'm curious as to how that figure compares to what the average cost of educating a student is in a public school in New Hampshire.
It's $11,500 for high schoolers, and it's $12,500 for middle schoolers.
And what I was meaning was that I'm paying taxes for my son still to go to school in Pembroke, even though he's not going there.
I see. Okay.
So there's no, in New Hampshire, the money doesn't follow the child.
Okay.
In states like Florida, I don't know if it's still like that, the money follows the child. If they go somewhere else, the money goes with the child. It does not happen here. So we're educating these kids on half of, he's only getting $5,000 spent on him at ASD. If he was at TRS, he'd be getting $9,000 or $11,000, whatever.
And just to explain where that would come from, that would be at the local traditional public school.
Okay.
It would be our statewide education going towards the school. In addition, locally raised dollars on top of that going to the school. So the charter schools are only gonna get the state dollars
Okay.
according to a formula.
I see.
And I think we probably better not drill down further than that.
Yeah, I could talk for hours.
Yeah. Okay.
In New Hampshire, we have a large homeschool population.
Yes.
How does that play into your charter schools? Do you find that the homeschoolers are joining your charter schools?
Yes.
Or
And they're
in
better
some way
educated.
connecting with you or staying out?
Quickly, if we could get a
Yes,
sense of the
no,
homes.
both?
Yeah,
We have a fairly robust percentage of people who have homeschooled their kids or considered homeschooling their children. I won't say they're better or worse. I mean, my own children, we homeschooled until my son was in 6th grade and my daughter was in 9th grade. I think that when the homeschool parents choose the charter school, that they often do well, and then there are times when those same families have similar issues with us that they had with any kind of formalized, structured education, and we have some homeschool parents who stay with us for a year and then go back to homeschooling. So, but it is a like-minded type of philosophy towards education that will make homeschooling families look towards us.
yeah, that's been our experience too, is that, especially being 9 through 12, that I think a lot of parents start to feel like, okay, we've surpassed my teaching ability, and then find, our school being smaller and being more intimate fits what they were doing at home as well. So it's usually a pretty good fit.
Yeah, same thing for ASD, because children are not put in